Black pain, now we free from them chains. Heavy hearts, but we moving through the rain. Three black brothers with the weight on their minds. Till we rise, till we shine, till we grind. From the darkness to the light we claim. Still humble in the struggle, still proud of our name.
All right, welcome back to the King's Effect podcast. We're on season 2, episode 16, and I have a very special guest with me. His name is Chris James. He is a mental health advocate for Black men, and also he is an anger management specialist. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Chris, a little bit about where you're from and what you do, and then we can get into the conversation of just what does peace feel like when you feel like you're always on guard.
All right. Man, so Chris James, I'm from Little Rock, Arkansas, based in Atlanta, Georgia now. As you mentioned, I am a certified anger management specialist. I'm also a mental health first aid instructor for the National Council of Mental Wellbeing. So what that means is I do a lot of training around suicide prevention for young people. I also run a statewide program called Black Boys Better, where we provide mental health education and services for Black boys. And my staff is Black men who are mental health professionals. So my passion is serving Black men in the space of wellness and making sure the Black men and the Black boys in my community are equipped with the tools to overcome the inevitable, which is pain, hurt, sadness, and just it's my passion to make sure that Black men and boys are that they don't choose death, right, by way of suicide. Because again, as we will talk about it here in this conversation, is that it is a crisis. Men are every single year are 80% of the suicides happening in the world. And so I'm super passionate about having that conversation and making sure men don't choose that as an option when their pain is present.
Yeah, and that speaks volumes to you, Chris, for being able to be vulnerable and open up and try to divulge and help other Black men that suffer in silence, because there's so many men, Black men, that wanted to X themselves or kill themselves because they just had so many issues going on in their life. And sometimes it's not even a fault of their own. It's just daily life challenges that they might be struggling with. Men working 2 or 3 jobs and they feel like they're not well off, or they're not where they're supposed to be at. And society is deeming them as a man because we hold a lot of our weight and our value based on the things that we provide for other people in our lives, right? Like our family and stuff like that. And so when we don't have money or we don't have resources to kind of come to connect, we feel less than a man. And I've been there myself, like when I haven't been able to provide for family and stuff like that. And I don't know where the next meal is going to come from, but God has always gotten me to a point where I reach out to people. I've been very fortunate that I have close friends and I can go and have these conversations and they don't judge me and let me borrow some money and stuff like that till I get on my feet and pay them back. But a lot of Black men, they don't have these resources or they don't have these connections. And I'm in a lot of men's mental health groups. So we talk about these conversations over and over, that it's nothing to be ashamed about. Like sometimes you just don't have the resources, or you don't know any better, or you never learned from your father. It's a lot of trauma that goes with things that people don't really see on the outside, but you have to deal with internally to kind of get through this life. And speaking of peace, when people are always feeling like on guard, or they feel anxious, or they feel depressed, or they feel suicidal, what is some of the techniques that maybe you teach some of the men that you kind of help in your program to kind of overcome? What's some of those techniques to kind of feel at peace in their soul?
Yeah, man. Thanks for the question. Yeah, man. And I will say, to your point about men attaching their value to how they provide, that is a major issue, especially in the Black community and just amongst men, period, right? The world has kind of shaped us in that way to attach our value into what we can do versus who we are, right? So something I teach men when I provide my services as a wellness counselor, as an anger management specialist, is I do the work to get them to remove so much of that value from what they do and attempt to get them to move that value of themselves to just their being, right? Like your value is just in who you are, right? Dr. Miles Monroe, the late legend, he talks about why most men struggle, and it goes directly back to our issues with our identity and the questions that he says that we struggle with in our hearts as men. It's not so much about how much money we got or don't got. It's more so connected to the unanswered questions that we have within ourselves, which are, who are we? Why are we? Right? Which connect to purpose and identity, right? Like oftentimes we have the question to ourselves our entire lives: what am I supposed to be doing on this earth? Right? What is my purpose? Right? So we find ourselves stressed and stretched, right? Being pulled in so many directions because we think our purpose is to make money and to buy a house and to, right? We think that's the purpose, right? But that is not your purpose. So we find ourselves depressed because we keep getting further and further away from what purpose actually is, right? You know, so that's that why are we? Why do I exist, right? And then who am I is also connected to that, right? So, am I a father, or am I a son, or am I right? So we become so many different things, and we never find fulfillment in any of these things because again, it goes back to the why am I, right? And I'm about to get to your question about the peace, but I think if we don't answer these questions, right, why are we and what are we supposed to be doing on this earth, we'll never get to peace, right? We'll never get to joy. We'll never get to happiness, right? So it starts here. Why am I? Why do I exist on this earth, right? So I'm gonna answer that question for every man who will watch this conversation, right? The answer is you are here on this earth to serve others. But here's the first piece of that. Your purpose on earth, number one, is to become the best version of yourself. Boom, right? Let's hold on to that. Your purpose on earth is to become the best version of yourself. And what that looks like is it looks like you doing the work to become well, right? So let's break down some words really quickly. The word wealth originates from the word wele, right? So let's go to the word heal. The word heal derives from the word whole or holy, to be spiritually pure, right? So if we're talking about health and we're talking about wealth, right? The word wealth originally had little to nothing to do with money, but it had everything to do with the abundance of your health. So if we're talking about doing the work to become the best version of ourselves, if that is the first layer of our purpose, right? You should be doing the work to become the healthiest version of yourself. So what does that look like, right? What does it look like to be healthy and whole? So that's number one. That's the first part of your purpose, right? And that may include having a little bit of money. It may include having some education. It may include, being healthy in your physical fitness, right? All that, right? But the second part of your purpose, your why on this earth, is to help others become the best versions of themselves. That's it. Simple as that, right? So if we erase all the other stuff and we get down to that lowest focus, right? Then we can get to peace and happiness and joy and all of this stuff, right? So that's what I want to. That's the first thing I want to get to you, and I'll turn it over to you. I can go all day on this topic.
Yeah. A lot of people, I like how you said our purpose is to serve others. And I think a lot of people, including me, we become very selfish in this life where we think that we supposed to have our emotions, our mind already together. But I don't think God put us down here to be perfect, because he would have never created us to be imperfect if he wanted us to be perfect, right? And so we have to kind of go through these trials and tribulations to learn about ourselves and what we like and what we don't like, and how to be a better person, as you said. But then there's also times where you don't really know what you're supposed to be doing down here. Like, you're just going through the emotion every single day, just in and out of trouble, or just having a lot of mental health issues. And that's where I say it's important to have these mental health organizations, or these different ways to kind of cope with life, because it can get very stressful at times. But if you have support, or you have help, or the things that you want out of your life, then eventually you will come closer towards that purpose. But it's a lot of people that's not at peace in their mind, and that kind of starts with you before you can kind of help other people. And
Yeah.
once you've gone through therapy, or you've gone through people that you find close, and you can talk out these issues without being ridiculed or being judgment, then I feel like you can kind of move towards your element to be better in life. But it's going to take years. Like, it took me a lot of years to get to the point of me starting this podcast, because if I would have started this podcast 10, 15 years ago when I wasn't healed myself, that would feel like I'm hypocritical. I'm speaking about mental health and I'm not healed myself. But then I had to learn that healing is an ongoing journey. It's not, it might take your whole lifetime to feel healed. Like, that's how I process it. And when I was talking to my therapist, like, it's okay if you're not fully healed, but you need to be doing the work every single day to be a better version of yourself than you was yesterday. And a lot of people don't get that. Like, it's a lot of men that I talked to in the past. That's like, no, it doesn't seem like you're ready to kind of have this conversation with me. You know what I mean? Because I see a lot of things that, that's kind of saying the opposite of what you saying to me, because actions speak louder than words. And I just couldn't invite them on here, because this is a very sacred platform for me. And I would be doing a disservice for people if I invite somebody that's not mentally well on the show, and they bring it all down, just talking about anything. And I can't have that. So I always try to reach out to people that's like in the mental health profession, or people that's gotten their life to get together, or people that might be still going through the motions, but they're willing to work and they're willing to process their emotions, because that's really important to me. And I think and to kind of answer my own question, like, peace, how do we find peace when we're always feeling like on guard? I think it's just meditation. I'm a big meditation person. I definitely have these conversations with my therapist every 2 weeks, just so I can kind of check in with myself to see that if I'm not crazy. Because sometimes we get to a point where we want to be healed and we want to help other people, but then there's times where you might feel like you have to help other people on their journey, but that may not be your purpose. You can't heal everybody. Like, you got to be able to first heal yourself and then give the advice to other people. And if they want to receive it, that's on them. But that's not your job to make somebody else heal. That's their job to actually heal on their own and their own journey. Because like, it took me, 10, 15 years to kind of get to a place where I feel somewhat okay. Not all the way there yet, but I'm better than I was 10, 15 years ago. Let's put it that way. And peace, it does something wonderful for the mind. Like, when you sleep in your bed at night, and it's just that sense of wonderfulness that you can turn over, and you don't have to worry about all of your problems, because you know that you did the work on yourself. You made the resources available to you in times of need. And a lot of men don't have that. They really don't. So meditation is one way to kind of have a peaceful mind when you're always at, when you always feel like you're on guard and just life getting to you, meditation, prayer, if you are a religious person. I don't talk about religion a lot on this because it's just very dicey. But I know majority of the Black people, they are somewhat religious, the ones that I have really talked to. So doing meditation, praying, some type of religious belief, going to therapy, being in a lot of men's mental health groups is one of them, because they kind of like solidify all your thoughts that you might think that is private and that no one's talk about, all those intrusive thoughts that's in your mind, like, just random thoughts like you might want to kill yourself or you might want to kill somebody else, like just all of those things that might be triggering in your own mind. You can talk to someone else in that group and say they probably experienced the same exact things that you, and there's nothing to be ashamed about. So that's what peace, kind of helps me when the world is like against me, or I feel like I have no one else to go to. So, what does peaceful look like to you when you're feeling on guard or on edge? What does peace look like to you? How do you find that peace?
Well, first I want to define peace. Um, so, I come from the understanding of, so if you're familiar with the emotion wheel by Dr. Robert Plutchik, he defines all the basic emotions in 3 layers, right? So when we want to do the work to understand joy and peace, right? Because they're in relationship. Peace is the lowest level. Peace is defined as serenity, uh, a space of calmness, right? So when you're asking like what brings me peace, the question is like what brings serenity and calmness in my life, right? That's what shows up for me as it relates to um, the history of how peace is defined, right? The second level of peace is defined as joy, right? Uh, a feeling of pleasure, and then the highest form of peace is ecstasy. It's like extreme joy, happiness, and excitement all in one bubble, right? The ecstasy I experienced on my wedding day, right? Or the day I graduated high school, right? It was the first day I went to college. It was first freedom, right? Those were the feelings of ecstasy. You can't feel ecstasy every day. That'd be, oh my God, But for me, the goal is always to be at a space of peace, and then to have moments of joy every day, right? Let me have some moments of feel good every single day. Like, what does that look like for me, right? So, oftentimes I ask people, to same as you, what brings you peace or joy in your life? And a lot of people, they don't really have answers for it, right? So what I ask them is, well, if you don't know what brings you peace, what brings the storm in your life? Most people, they can tell you that. Oh man, what brings the storm in my life? Man, the absence of money. My, my girl complaining about, she talking about I should do more. But my baby mama not wanting me to see my son, so she go put me on child support. Like, so all the things that brings you your storm, right? My daddy didn't really fool with me growing up, right? That's the storm. So if all the things or the experiences that have contributed to your storm, the absence or the understanding or the work to be in a healthy relationship with those experiences, right? Or doing the work to forgive the experiences, those things will bring you peace, right? So for me, what brings me peace, right? To your question, right, is being at peace with the experiences that have happened in my life, right? My mom died 3 years ago. I didn't have to forgive her, right? I had to forgive the experience, because the experience that my mother died, it was the most painful thing I could ever experience in my life. I had to forgive the experience because I wasn't angry at her. I was angry at the experience. I was oppressed about the experience, right? That I had to experience that. So in order to get back to peace, I had to forgive the experience. I had to accept that it was real, right? I had to accept that it happened. Like March 26, 2022, I had to accept that it happened, but it's not happening, right? It's not happening, right? Because some people, they relive the trauma every single week or every single day or every March 26th. I'm going to relive my mother's death, right? So I'm re-traumatizing myself, right? That doesn't bring me peace, right? So I had to forgive the experience. I had to accept the experience happened and that it's not happening. So that's the formula for me on repeat, right? With all the things that I have experienced, right? My dad not being in my life, I had to, again, the formula what in that, I had to accept that it had less to do with me and more to do with him, right? It wasn't like he wasn't absent because I was a terrible little baby. It was like, oh man, look at that little baby. Terrible. Throw him away. I don't want to be in his life. No, I had to grow up and realize that his absence had less to do with me and more to do with him. Right. So again, so when I think about peace, I had to remember, I had to come to a realization of all the things that brought me my storm, right? All the things that hurt me, all the things that, right? And so when I did the work, took the steps to get to peace and understanding with those experiences, I'm at peace. So peace for me is a constant reminder to check back in with myself about the experiences. Because realistically, in reality, like it ain't the new stuff that's happening in life that brings us our storm. It's the reminders of those old things, right? And what we call the reminders of old trauma, we call those triggers, right? What are those things that remind us of the old experiences that have scarred us in our lives, right? The, her cheating, the guy cheating on you or the girl cheating on you when you're 25, that ain't the thing that's causing you the trauma and hurt. That thing is that experience that's happening now in that moment is triggering something else that happened forever ago,
Like
right?
mommy issues, basically. Yeah.
Mommy, I want to even that or just a time you felt rejected or a time where you felt like you weren't seen or right. But again, it goes back to it has less to do with me and more to do with the others. When somebody
Mhm.
cheats on you, it triggers insecurities. It triggers not feeling like you're enough, right? So it goes to a whole lot of different things for
Yeah.
everybody, right?
Yeah.
So that's my thought about that, man. Like peace
Yeah.
and
Now,
forgiveness, all of that is in relationship.
now I want to move the conversation to the ending of it here. This has been a really insightful interview with you, and I appreciate you being very vulnerable about your experiences. But I wanted to kind of ask you now, like, what made you want to get into the mental health space of helping other people, and how do you feel like your life experiences contributed to helping other people? Like, because I know, because like we always say that we have to have our own experiences, or we have to kind of have a sense of what went wrong in our life, in order to help other people, or to be able to be empathetic because of the experiences we went through. We can actually help someone else that might be going through the same or similar experiences. But what kind of was there different life experiences that you can divulge about that actually help you to want to help other people, or is it just something that you always had a vision for, but you didn't know what did that look like? So basically, the question is just what made you want to help other people?
Yeah, man. Well, I'll say this, man. I think all of who we are is who we've always been. Right? I'm gonna say that one more time. All of who we are is who we've always been. Right? So when I think about how I show up now at 35, in small in small ways, I was already this, right? I remember being in 7th grade talking to people about their pain, right? And encouraging them to that they had the ability to push through it, right? Like, I remember like showing up like that as a teenager, right? I remember saying little things to motivate and inspire my mother, right? As a before being a teenager. So I remember showing up in these ways. So I remember just this natural thing in me, right? So I remember that, right? But to take it further, I think I've always had a passion to help others, or beyond helping others, right? There's this quote that says, "It's hard to be seen. It's hard to see when you haven't been seen, and it's hard to be heard when you haven't to hear when you haven't been heard." Right. So in other words, I've always wanted to be heard. I've always wanted to be seen. And in many ways, I have been, right? I talk about it all the time. I have a very healthy attachment style because of my mother. She, I, yeah, she did a great job. But a lot of people haven't been seen or heard, right? But I've always felt that and always wanted it. Even though I had it, I always wanted it more. And every time I got it, it felt amazing, right? Like I tell people, my love language is words of affirmation. I love when people acknowledge my presence and my contribution, right? So I love to help others experience what it feels like to be seen and heard. But first, I love to help people see and hear themselves first. So, and I'll close out my answer with this. I had the luxury, right? And I'm saying this for a reason because everybody don't have the luxury. I had the luxury of doing the work to heal, right? I had the luxury to heal. And because I had the luxury to heal and to experience the other side of pain, right? To overcome hurt and trauma and darkness, because I had that luxury to do that, I feel indebted to everybody around me to make sure they get to experience that too, right? And because I've experienced it in such a deep way, I understand the intricacies as it relates to the steps to get there. So I feel like I'm supposed to be passing this stuff out, right? I'm supposed to be giving you these steps to understand your peace versus your storm and how to walk them back and how to forgive the experience and understand these concepts because I understand them so deeply because I had the luxury to experience it. So that's why, I do this work and that's why I continue to do the work.
Yeah. And I thank you though. But that's all the time we have today, Chris. I do appreciate you being able to be vulnerable. It's always good to hear it's always good to hear why they found the things that they like to do or their purpose in life, because a lot of times men, they don't have purpose. And it goes to women can be the same way too. But since this is a podcast about Black men, I always try to center it around us because they have enough support. We need a lot more support too. And I always think that I didn't think I was going to originally do this show because I already was stressed out with 2 other jobs and I already had another talk show going on for 2 years before this show. And I didn't think I had the capacity to kind of give any more insights because I already said most of my experiences on there. But once I center it around Black men, it's very complicated. It's very nuanced. It's not a one size fits all conversation. And once I learned that, I said, okay, I got a hit on my show. I got something that I could talk about every week. I know the direction I want. Ultimately, all the episodes that come out, you should feel better than when you came in because the conversations are very nuanced and they're not one-sided. Some guests agree with me, some don't. Some we meet in the middle, and that's okay. As long as we're having this conversation about mental health, I'm okay with that. So that feeds my soul and be able to help other people in return. So that's what kind of piece looks like for me too. Like, because this is kind of like my sanctuary where I come and I talk about and get things off my chest. Some weeks I'm more let my guests talk more. Some weeks I want to talk more. So it just all depends on the conversation and how it goes. But I do thank you though for being on here. If you have any friends or family, Black men that you could refer to me that would like to come on, I could send some Black men your way for your organization. But I would definitely like to stay in touch, and you can follow all of my social medias and keep in touch. And I wish you nothing but the best, Chris, here. So
I appreciate you, man. I look forward to your continued success, man. And again, reach out if you need me, man. So thank you for having me on your platform.
okay, and I will just stay tuned so we could talk about some things here too. So.
All right.